guys, she finally made it. She finally made it. I finally went to Spain. I spent 6 weeks volunteering in the Canary Islands, and here's a little video about what I was doing, what it was like to live in the Canary Islands, and what it was like to finally get to use my Spanish. Now we're going to start with this question again. What is the Canary Islands? The Canary Islands is a name for a group of Spanish islands off the coast of Morocco. The Canary Islands consists of 7 islands, and the biggest of them is Tenerife, which is where I spent 6 weeks at. The Canaries have historically been considered a link between Africa, Europe, and the Americas. It's a huge tourist destination, especially for Europeans, and it's nice and warm all year round, and that's why I was so tanned in my last video. And I chose to go here instead of going to mainland Spain because I didn't want to be like other girls and go to Barcelona. No, I'm kidding. But I thought that it would be interesting because I knew next to nothing about the Canary Islands, and I thought it was such just like a weird part of Spain, and also winter was coming and I wanted to stay warm. And so that's why I went on a site called Workaway and I searched for volunteer opportunities in the Canary Islands, and I found one in an animal sanctuary farm. And I'll talk more about that later on, but first, guys, look at what a beautiful place this island is.
Welcome to Tenerife.
So this is my friend Doretta from the Netherlands. I'm currently staying in the south part of Tenerife, and we drove up to Santa Cruz, and then today we're going to a little village called Taganana, which is in the far northeast of the island. And I am very excited to go there. Yeah, me too. So my friend Doretta was visiting me for a week on her holidays, and this was the day that we took a day trip to this beautiful village called Taganana. And I would really recommend this place if you ever had the chance to go to Tenerife. It has one of the most beautiful beaches on the island, the coastline is gorgeous, and the view of the village is really pretty too. And it's not overly touristy like other places in the island, which I loved.
They're ignoring me.
They're ignoring me too.
It's all about the tone.
So selfish.
I think it's because they're Spanish.
Savage. So sad.
Oh,
So sad. So I was volunteering in an animal sanctuary farm called Tenerife Horse Rescue as a videographer, and there were about 40 volunteers. We all lived together, and the deal was that we had to work 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and in exchange we get accommodation and food.
Hi everyone, my name's Emma. I'm one of the founders of Tenerife Horse Rescue, and this is Sardinimus. How it all started, long story short, right? So when I was born, I was named after a goat. My mum and dad already rescued animals, and they named me after their favorite goat, so it's okay. Right from a young age, I was always part of rescuing animals. Everyone thought it was going to be a phase that I grew out of, and it wasn't. That's the long story short. And then when I met my partner, it became the right time because he met me and he's as crazy as me, and he also agreed that it's a great idea. And we originally came to the Canary Islands actually for selfish reasons. I came for the weather, and then we saw the need, and it just evolved into doing it from here. Because on the Canary Islands, at first sight, it seems absolutely beautiful. It is a beautiful place. It's very touristic and it's an amazing place. But once you start looking into it deeper, you see that actually, unfortunately, animal welfare is quite bad here, and you can find animals in the bins, on the street corners, just get left and abandoned, and there wasn't really a lot of help. Barely anything for help with horses and things like this, and it just developed from there, and that's where we are now. Hi, nice to meet you. Sorry, I'm guessing you're Irena, right?
Yes, I'm the new one.
So this is going to be normal for you because she's taking over, so you'll get used to filming me.
I'm leaving today and she's starting today as a neighbor.
We are 100% run by volunteers, and that was because we had no money. And at first there was just a few volunteers, and then when we realized that there was more and more that we could get involved with, they helped us with everything from the animals, working with the horses, working with the small animals, and then the building, then the office. And we've somehow created this system that seems to work, and the island needs us, and if we can do it, and there's amazing volunteers everywhere to join us, that's how it evolved.
can't talk with so many people around. I have to put on like my YouTuber mode, but I get Okay, so hello. This is my very last day in Tenerife. I've been here for about like 5 or 6 weeks, I would say, and this is literally my last day. Emma, my boss, just found out that I have a YouTube channel, and she was like, "Oh, you're not making a YouTube video for it?" And then I thought, you know what? I got an hour and a half, I can shoot some stuff, so that's what we're gonna be doing today. So I'm gonna show you guys my room really quick, and I'm gonna use my phone because it's easier than my camera, and I don't have that much time. So a room tour really quick. This has been my little casita for the last month, and if you go in, so it's quite basic. I've been living like a hippie so far. It gets really hot during the daytime, and you want to keep the door shut at all times because flies will come in. But honestly, it's been alright. I'm happy. It hasn't rained. I feel like if it rains, I am screwed, but it hasn't rained so far since I've come here. So that is Alejandro. So as you can see, it was quite a rustic living situation, but I knew what I was signing up for, and I'm pretty low maintenance, so that didn't bother me that much. But in the beginning, I found a lot of things to be pretty overwhelming. Like living in a big community, there's just a lack of privacy. Electricity goes out at night. You had to walk a few minutes to get to the closest bathroom, and there were so many flies, and the fact that animals were just absolutely everywhere were just situations that was way out of my comfort zone. And in the very beginning, I thought of maybe just finding another place, but I decided that I'll give myself at least 2 weeks to get used to the situation, because I knew that no matter what place you go to, the first week, the first couple of days would be really hard, just because you have to adjust yourself, you have to get used to a new situation. So no matter where you go, it will be very rare to feel at home from like day one. And in retrospect, I'm really glad that I decided to not move out really quickly, because I ended up having the best time. I met so many interesting people. Like the type of people who would come to this type of place are just so interesting, and they had so many crazy backstories and just like stories to tell. And I loved the conversations. I loved all the new experiences that I got to have. Like I went surfing for the first time in my life. That was a big one for me. And yeah, I'm just really glad that I stuck to it, and I told myself that I'll give 2 weeks to get used to it. And I think that was a smart idea in retrospect. Also, in terms of my Spanish, this was the first time that I was in a Spanish-speaking country since I started learning Spanish, so that was really exciting for me. I was a bit unsure before going because the finca was operating in English, and I was afraid that I wouldn't use Spanish that much even though I'm in Spain, but it turned out that there were quite a few Spaniards and Latin Americans in the finca, and I got along with them really well, so I was kind of like integrated in their group, which was really fun. But I gotta say, Spain Spanish was so hard for me. Like, it's so different from Mexican Spanish, from Latin American Spanish. Like, getting around in town is fine, but just like normal conversations with the Spaniards in the finca was like tough. It's just that there's so many basic words and slangs that I've just never heard of before. Like, I didn't know what una persona maja meant, or what me mola meant, and oh my god, there are so many slangs with the word cojones in it. With that being said, I was so glad that I learned Spanish. It was so fun to be able to talk to locals. They're just nicer to you, and especially like after spending time in Germany and Switzerland, it felt so much more comfortable to be able to understand what people were saying, being able to read the signs, not having to depend on friends the whole time to communicate, but also being surrounded by Spanish native speakers for like the first time ever. I really felt self-conscious about my Spanish, and to be honest, the reason why I'm not doing this entire video in Spanish right now is because I wasn't really speaking enough Spanish. I don't think my Spanish grew that much. They all understood English, so it was just easier and more comfortable for me to just like talk in English, and I talked the most Spanish actually with like my Italian friend, but with the native speakers I just felt really self-conscious. And then I realized, so I'm actually back in Tokyo at the moment, but since I got back I realized that I have more motivation to study Spanish. Like, tengo más ganas de estudiar. Like, literally more than when I was in Spain. I was surrounded by Spanish, but I felt more kind of like frustrated than motivated, to be honest, which like is like really annoying to have to admit. But I think what happened, and I think the key of like learning language, is ultimately your attitude. Like, I think the reason why coming back to Tokyo is making me go back to my Spanish study mentality again is because I spent over a year integrating Spanish into my daily life. I was making it into a habit. But when I was in Spain, I feel like I was lacking the attitude of like really you know, trying basically. And that's what in retrospect I realize now. So what I'm trying to say is, and a valuable lesson that I personally got out of this is that it doesn't really matter where you're at to be able to learn a language. It's more about how you make it a habit and how you approach learning the language more than the environment. So that's what I learned from this, which I regret a little bit because I didn't have that attitude, but I think it's a positive lesson because that means it doesn't really matter if you're not in the country. I mean, it kind of does, but like what really matters is your attitude and to your determination to make it into a habit. And you can learn a language wherever you are. This is the office that I was working in for the last month. That is Lauren right over there, the lovely Aussie. What you working on? Ooh. Hola. Okay, this is my ex-roommate. ¿Cómo se dice roommate en español? Se dice
compañera de habitación.
Compañera de habitación, Gemma. And she is the artista of this finca. She's made amazing projects before.
Gracias, corazón.
And she inspires me to call people corazón.
Te quiero, amiga.
Please.
Last day.
No.
What is one glass though? Is it a half a litre or is it like...
Michaela, what was the question?
I said, how much do you have to like pay to drink a glass of this? No, you're not.
Dude, no!
1,000 euros.
1,000 euros. 100. Nah. I'd say 200.
So we all expected the rewarding thing is obviously working with the animals, it's amazing, but it's also really rewarding to see the changes in the people. So many people come to us to join the community because maybe they're trying to find themselves or they've had a difficult time in their life, and to see the people change and grow with the place, and some of the stories that they've told us how this place has changed them is amazing. Like for example, this tattoo, this is our finca. Did you get it? I don't remember. No, you haven't got it. I think we're on 92 people, I think she said last time, that have got this tattoo now around the world. And it's just amazing to see that these people have chosen to be, you know, that this place has made such a mark on them as well. So it's not just a sanctuary for animals, it's a sanctuary for humans too.